All right, we'll call this Board of Directors meeting to order at 7:05 p.m. Board has land acknowledgement anti-racism statement posted on its website. Roll call tonight. Everyone's here. Adoption of the agenda is the first item. We do have one amendment removing the capital request on the golf course irrigation system. 6D. Is there anyone opposed?
I'd like to amend the agenda if I could. I saw your email about another meeting, but I've asked 3 times to be able to hand out some paperwork for N&E, and I'd like to get the ball rolling on that.
Yeah, I was planning on just sending it to Richard in advance, just so the board had his feedback. So I was going to do that this week. Sorry, I've been a little busy lately, so.
I have copies of this for everybody if they want one.
That's fine. You can pass it out. But yeah, I think it would be easiest if we discussed it maybe next week at the meeting.
Huh?
Email it to me.
I did send it all out in an email once. Didn't get any responses, so.
We're not supposed to have one. Yeah.
You have one.
I'm good.
Okay, I'm discounting.
Are you all right if we, people can look it over and we can discuss it next week?
Ask one question.
Sure. Yeah.
Was the contract signed and agreed and done?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I never got a notice of that. Somebody asked me on the N&E committee, was that done? I said, I don't know.
No, that was, I'm sorry, I
Okay.
didn't copy, but it was.
And then I can send these to Richard here tomorrow and have him give any input on it before next week.
Okay.
Does that work?
Sure.
Okay. Thanks, Michael.
Hopefully, we're not going to make any changes when we discuss this if you send it to the attorney first.
I'll just, if he has any feedback on it, I'll just provide that feedback and then we can discuss changes accordingly if we need to, based on feedback.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I move to approve the adopted agenda then. All those in favor? We have 2 items on the consent agenda. Are there any objections to the consent agenda? All right, hearing none, those are approved. Moving on to announcements. Any announcements?
I guess there's still openings. Is it working? I guess there's still opening.
Have it directly in front of you.
I guess there's still openings for people to volunteer to be on the finance committee and still on ACC. And I noticed there are jobs at the golf course. They got a big sign up that they're hiring for jobs. I don't know where to tell people to go. I've looked all over for the announcements on the website. I think it's under volunteers or something, but yeah.
All the job openings at SVCA are listed on the careers page on the website, which can be found if you scroll down. The left menu, it's at the bottom, says careers. And Michael, it is absolutely correct to volunteer for a committee. Again, on the left-hand menu on the current website, you click on volunteers, and then you'll go to the page where you can submit an application.
Linda?
I'm not sure this is completely accurate, but I understand that the Friends of the South Whatcom Library have moved their proposed jazz festival to Glen Haven. I will try and follow up so that with them to get the exact dates, times, and that sort of thing.
Other announcements? All right, hearing none, we'll move to property owner comments. If anyone wishes to speak, please come to the microphone.
Brian, you got your mic on. You're upside down.
Anyone running mics in here to mute their mics?
Hello?
Should work now. I think it was Brian's computer.
So is my time up?
Right.
Please sit down.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Where's the hook? Okay. I haven't been to a board meeting, like everybody else for a long time. Last one was a video thing that we had, and I'm not very techy, as you may have noticed if you watched, and I got very frustrated, and I want to apologize to the board and anybody that was there because it was inappropriate behavior on my part. Moving forward, I'd also like to compliment Joanne for her recent negotiations of the CTK contract, and with Sonia's cooperation and help. I thought that was awesome. Obviously, Jason thought it was, good. But I think it shows me a certain amount of hope in this community where we can actually disagree on things and yet come together on things that are important to the children, our community, our safety, how we do our business, and a little less like our government, where you got the Democrats over here and the Republicans over here, and they hate each other. The only people that get hurt in situations like that is the public, the people. They're still making all the big bucks. They're getting paid off by the lobbyists and blah, blah, blah. So your guys have put your lives on hold for a while to go through this process. And I've seen it happen in different ways, but I've never seen it as separated as it is now. It's pretty black and white, and it's unfortunate. And again, why I compliment you. Okay. I think that your attitude, that meeting, showed me something that I hadn't seen before. And I apologize if I've ever offended you in the past. Please forgive me. Thank you. As far as other things, I just think, again, it's a pretty simple thing. Learn to, play nice in the sandbox. Keep it in here. Don't take it out on social media. That's where cowards go. They won't face you. They'll go on social media. Bite your head off. These things say things that are false, that are lies, and then just kind of go away. So we're having in a difficult time with our entire world. COVID put us back years, and we don't know the damage that it's done because the children aren't running the country that were damaged. So thank you very much for your time, and continue to work together for us.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks for that, Chris. I think we need more of those positive comments, and I really appreciate that.
Can I speak as a homeowner?
Yeah.
Mike Wadsworth, 5 Western Lane. As a homeowner and member of the community, I have been kind of meeting or talking with a couple of different people about safety in Sudden Valley, and there's a big concern about natural disaster, forest fire, mudslides, whatever, with all the rain and things that are going around the country. It could happen here. And I said I would encourage the board to get back to the table with the preparedness committee. My brain just went blank. The emergency preparedness committee. And I just don't want to see us do all the improvements we're doing here in the community and then have a fire burn us all out or something and lose any less than property, but loss of life or anything. It's really important. Thank you. Sure.
The microphone, because people are having a hard time hearing.
I'm not sure of the exact date, but I think it was 1983. The first week or two in January, we had a huge snowpack in all of Whatcom County, Skagit County. And then we had 58-degree temperatures and torrential rain. There was a 2-year logging operation in the lake, getting logs out of the lake, okay? This community was 100% locked off for several days. Gate 5 had to have emergency vehicles and water brought into them by whoever, and we are not prepared for it. We're not prepared for it. The trees when I got here, the trees were like this. Well, now they're like this. Guess what? This is a road that used to be a fire block. Now it's just a thing. So I think whatever we can do to be proactive, have a plan. If nothing else, just how do we get the hell out of here? Okay. Where do we go to group? You know, is it here? This would be a good spot. Not a lot of trees, not a lot of brush, not a lot of other houses to catch fire here. So do something to, again, a future oriented.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Okay, we'll move on to general manager's report. Go ahead.
Thank you, AJ. March's focus was getting our facilities and programs ready for the warmer weather. As the days get warmer, more and more people start to take advantage of the golf course, parks, and trails, and the opening days for the marina and pools get closer. Snow plows have been put away for the season and the mowers are being tuned up. Before we completely turn our attention to the new season, however, we at SVCA are taking time to discuss what worked well in the snow season and what could be improved to inform next year's snow removal plan. Just a side note, this week we got a compliment from the fire department. We were in there talking about some road work that was happening right in front of them. And they came out and they said that they had never seen such a responsive snow removal activity in Sudden Valley. So they were very complimentary. And I think we should all, if we see Mike Brock, pat him on the back. Pool season, to change the subject completely. We're making very strong progress in our preparations for the 2023 pool season. We've identified 14 strong candidates for the lifeguard team. We've negotiated a rental agreement with the Bellingham Bay swim team and are working with the YMCA to again provide swim lessons here in Sudden Valley. At our next board meeting, I hope to share more detailed information with you about the pool schedule and to be able to report that we have finalized all of these agreements that we've been working so hard to negotiate. We did finalize an agreement with David Herrera to provide personal training services and group fitness classes at the Recreation Center. David worked with SVCA pre-COVID, had many happy clients, and we're very pleased to restore that popular service to the fitness center. In a previous report, I listed the installation of a new card reader access system as one of our major technology projects for 2023. That system has been installed and our user data has finally been imported into the system. We're now working to fine-tune the configuration and we're writing reports so that we can track access to the facilities that use the card readers. This includes the rec center, the fitness center within the rec center, RV storage, marina wet slips, and the boat launch. We're still working out these configurations, so some cards may have stopped working. If this happens to you, please let the admin team know and we'll get it fixed right away. The transition of our security systems, which include these card readers, to Guardian Security was begun last year, and this installation completes that project. The advantages of these new systems will now start to be realized. We'll have easier access to camera data, the ability to track card swipes and report on usage, and also the ability to quickly reprogram automatic locks to reflect holidays or other changes in facility schedules. As we adapt our processes to include these new capabilities, I look forward to providing better service to the community and better reporting to the board. The next technology project that we will tackle is the installation of a new VoIP phone system. This phone system gives us all the features of our current system, but does not require the use of on-site hardware. This means that we will not have to spend the $16,000 that was budgeted in 2024 for new hardware. The transition to the new system should be accomplished without any downtime, but when we have a confirmed date, we'll announce it to the community so that if there is a hiccup, they will know. Capital project updates. Culvert 315, bids were received from contractors on 4/7 and will be presented to the board tonight for a recommended contract award. SVCA requested quotes from 8 contractors and received 4 bids. This project is expected to start in September, assuming delivery of the box culvert can be scheduled. Otherwise, this project will have to push out to summer of '24. Once the contract is executed, SVCA will receive a final schedule from the contractor. Barn 8 siding and covered bridge replacement. The project was submitted to Whatcom County for permit review on 2/7. It is expected to go out for bid this spring with construction starting in September after the pool closes. And this is a change in schedule to those of you who've been following it. Design for replacing the covered bridge is ongoing, and it is being submitted as a separate project for permit review by Whatcom County. As another side note, in February, Whatcom County Permitting Department released a letter telling everyone, the community at large, that they were very behind due to many openings on their staff. Well, we've seen that come true on all of these projects. The permitting process is a necessary and important part of these capital projects, and it's slowed every single one of them down pretty significantly. To continue the maintenance shop remodel, the design was complete and was submitted to county for permit on 2/27. It is expected still to go out for bid this spring with construction starting this summer. The Marina Boat Launch Dock, we received a shorelines permit from the county, which is a major step. Design has been completed and the building permit application was submitted on schedule to the county on 3/30. The project will go out for bid this spring with construction proposed this summer once the permits are issued. The playground ADA improvements, bids were received from contractors on 4/7 and will be presented to the board tonight for a recommended contract award. We requested quotes from 8 contractors and received 4 bids. Construction will happen this summer. Once the contract is executed, we'll receive a final schedule from the contractor and we'll share that with his group. The Austin Creek repair, design and permitting is ongoing. We've learned that the project requires a shorelines permit in addition to others, and because of this requirement, construction is now expected to occur in 2024. Cold Spring drainage repair, design and permitting still underway. We expect it to be completed soon with construction to follow this summer. 2023 culvert cleaning. The cleaning of culverts began in February on the 20th and is expected to be complete by the end of April. Progress has been better than expected. We didn't quite know going into it how hard it would be, but we're actually ahead of our estimates, which is very, very encouraging. The 10-year capital roads and drainage improvement plan, Impact Design, as you know, was the awarded engineer for completing the 10-year plan. Road and drainage evaluation started in February on the 20th and will be completed in May. The final updated plan is scheduled to be received by October. In a check-in earlier this month with Scott at Impact Design, he shared that his estimates are right on track for the amount of time that it needed for the inspections. So that is another good indicator that we will be able to bring that project in on budget and on schedule. The core area tennis court resurfacing, design and permitting, again, expected to be complete this summer with construction proposed for September, that early fall time period. And side note on the tennis courts, since we've made the announcement that they're being resurfaced, I've had more than a dozen people either come into the office or email me that they're so pleased to see that happening, and also pleased to know that we'll be lining the courts and making it possible to play pickleball on those courts. So there is a real, for every one person that comes in, there's probably 9 or 10 who are just thinking it. So we're really pleased that we're doing something that the community will value and get some use out of. For the Marina Docks replacement, the preliminary design is nearing completion and the engineer's estimate is being finalized. And remember, we're doing this in advance to make sure that we can adjust the reserve study estimate for that very complicated project. And we're expecting that engineer's estimate to be finalized by the end of April. The rest of the general manager's report includes exciting departmental updates. I encourage everyone to read it. We'll post it to the website tomorrow. Thank you.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
On the culvert cleaning, how they cleaned the culvert out between one side of the little, I'm on Western Lane, Dawnbreak Court goes in there. So they cleaned that out. So now that's draining. It never has before. But what it created was about a 2 by 3 foot hole in the culvert in front of my house. That's just a lake. It just sits there until it fills up and then it trickles down. And I saw the guy from Strimler and he said they were going to dig out on one side and make it so it was better away from the mailboxes. But he said going on down to the creek that wasn't scheduled to do anything with.
So everyone who sees standing water should report that to the front office. So you can call or email through the website, or you can just email office@Sudden Valley. You don't have to go through the website.
Okay.
Or just call. And all of those requests are being forwarded to maintenance, who's collating them. And maintenance is going around to document the standing water and not only share it with Impact Design, but also to take mitigating action as soon as possible. We discovered with some of the culverts being cleared out that the culvert actually empties into a ditch that is now filled to above the level of the culvert.
Okay.
And so we're compiling a long list of ditches that need to be dug out and cleaned out. And we're being very, very proactive about it. So if you have an active problem, which is represented by standing water or water flowing over a road or a driveway, please do report that. It'll get on the list and we'll just work down the list.
Okay.
Just wondering if they're calling in, is there someone they should ask for specifically, or?
They don't have to speak to me directly, but they can. If people call in, just say, I want to report standing water and the address, and that's it.
Thanks, Joanne.
I have a couple questions of different things that are on your report. The card reader access, you didn't mention the quiet pool. I assume that was just an oversight, or that's been included over there by the library.
Yeah, it's grouped in with the library.
The other thing is you'd mentioned you're getting the new phone system. Did we fund that, or is it just something that comes with the new stuff that we've had installed?
It has been funded. One of the first capital requests I brought to the board was to approve a new contract with Comcast for internet access and a new VoIP system. And they finally installed the cable. They had to drill sideways under the road and under the parking lot. It was quite fascinating to watch, actually. And we're working now with Comcast to schedule the installation of internet and to do the transition to the new phone system. It's quite complex as a project, but it's going to save us a ton of money in the long run.
Yeah, it's basically operations, and it has to do with the money we pay the Comcast every month, correct?
Yes, Linda.
Okay. Then I have one last question. With the Marina docks replacement, who's the engineer that's doing the design?
I should know the name. I just am spacing on it. I can respond.
Send me an email.
I'll
I
do
just
that.
wondered who it was.
I will do that.
Thank you. That's all.
Mm. Any other questions? All right, we'll move on to new business. The first item is the discussion of the monthly metrics. So this is something we're going to bring forward to start to discuss what sort of metrics we're going to see in the general manager's report. So I guess I don't really know where to begin on this.
Well, would it help if I summarized what's been shared?
Sure.
So, kind of to kick off the discussion, Linda shared with the board a report that had been distributed in 2018. And it includes metrics, sort of overall metrics, but then specific metrics for each department. I did some research into that report, and it took quite a bit of time to prepare. And some of these metrics are easily available in our system, and many of them are not. Many of them required sort of tallies to be kept. And so I don't know if all of these things were being requested, Linda, or if you had just shared this as a way to start the discussion.
Just a way to start the discussion.
Awesome. So I don't know if anyone has had a chance to review that, but that's out there. And then also shared with the board was an example that was put together by Sonia, which is a more modern graphic presentation, like you would see in a business intelligence package or like a Tableau, for example. Many people are familiar with Tableau or Power BI. It also includes a significant number of indicators for the association, but it's a little more brief and focused on financials first and foremost, and then a smaller number of individual departmental metrics. That was also an example. I dug out an example from when Glenn Akramoff was the interim GM, and Glenn put together a more, it's kind of a hybrid. It's visual in some parts of it, but it's also mainly bullet points shared by the departments and organized by department. It includes such things as the dues collection rate, staffing levels, golf revenue. It's far less comprehensive than the other two examples, but I thought from a visual perspective, it offered a nice hybrid approach. That's what we've got so far.
Right. Well, I guess where do we want to begin on stuff?
So obviously, yeah, I put the thing together with the financials, and then once I kind of thought about it, because I was thinking more like the monthly metrics, right, that the board is looking for, not just necessarily from the GM, but that financial almost, well, actually everything in there related to financials, even though they're sometimes they're in charts and tables, Joel actually does report on those. So if we decide that we prefer like that type of layout, we just need to request that, you know, he converts those, whatever those KPIs are into, you know, some charts, or, you know, if it makes it a little easier. It's just, that's really all it is it's that at a glance dashboard that makes it real easy. But yeah, those were really meant just in general.
One of the thoughts that I had when I was listening to Joel walk us through the financial reports last meeting was that he sort of jots down comparisons to last year for key metrics and pulls those out and highlights them. And if I go back over the last few presentations that he's made, it actually provides a nice set of the things that are typically called out and compared to each other. So that's a place that I could go to put together a little draft. And it's similar to what you have, but he has a different way of looking at some things. So if people like his highlights, that might be another direction to go.
I think what's really important too is that this is not, when it's a general manager's report, you shouldn't be having to run around and do all of this. I think we all need to understand that you need to get, or we need to ask the department heads to provide you with the information so you can pop it in. I don't think it's meant to put any more workload on you. It's getting the community to have the information, but the department heads should have all that information quite easily, or most of it fairly easily, to provide to you and put that into those metrics. So I don't want to put it all on you either.
Yeah, maybe this should wait until Joanne has a assistant, like a what were you going to call it?
Oh, a chief of staff.
A chief of staff. Otherwise, we're likely to have Joanne doing reports instead of doing managing. I'm afraid of overloading her.
Well, I think it's absolutely appropriate for us to talk through what it's important to measure, and then to be a little bit patient about setting up the systems that can efficiently and accurately relay that information to the board. But discussing what's important to monitor, I think this is exactly the right time. Some of the metrics that were in these earlier reports relied on hand tallies. And I can't think of a worse way to collect a performance metric. In the old admin office in the clubhouse, there's a counter right by the window, and there's a device there that you're supposed to hit every time you serve a customer. And it at first I didn't know what it was, but then someone explained it to me. Mike Brock, our wonderful maintenance superintendent, provides a quarterly report, and he has charts and graphs, and it's very informative. And I appreciate his efforts. He keeps all of that in an Excel spreadsheet that he updates every single day. So I know that I've been slow to implement some of these systems, but that ticketing system will change all that, because it literally will count automatically anything that's submitted through the website. And since that's the way that we'll get things done, in order for any request or complaint or any other document to be processed, it would have to be entered into that system. So by default, to get something done, you have to count it or provide a mechanism. And I think that in that scenario, we'll have much better reporting. But again, discussing what we should be counting is very helpful.
Well, Linda?
I think the financials are fine. I don't think we need, I think we just need like current month and then a month back. If you're talking about a monthly report, I'd like to see FTEs, and not just FTEs, but also the number of people in the departments. I think in that example I showed you, there were two really good examples of how they did that, just one above the other. And it kind of shows how during the spring and summer months, we do a bell curve, right? And it really shows up nicely, but it also, I think, and I don't know if that had to do with Joel, but it also showed how our payroll adjusted accordingly. And those were nice reports. Know that that report from back in 2018, I'm sure we had far more staff. We had staff doing it we had in-house HR, And I think every month, all of them were expected to turn in their portion of that report. But it's just, I'd love to see more about our staff and stuff, because it lets us know where we are with maintenance, with rec, lifeguards, that sort of thing. But to me, that's important. The financials, I think Joel has, like you say, has done a lot of even that older report that you looked at besides the dashboard. But, the financials, month to month, I think he does a really good job of handling that. And I like the idea where you talk about he refers back to the prior year.
Thank you.
Can I comment on the FTEs? There's a problem. The issue with reporting FTEs monthly, it's deceptive because most people don't understand what that calculation is. It's different than the head count. And so what we've seen, at least I've personally seen, is a lot of people in the community, they'll say, you're supposed to have this many FTEs. And, so it's really, that's how our managers calculate the number of hours, that they're putting into certain things. So it's really relevant to our budget. And I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but I think on a monthly basis, it becomes really cumbersome and confusing. It might be something to consider maybe quarterly, to give the head count and the FTE, something like that. Or the head count actually could be monthly and the FTE be quarterly. That would be a little more, easier to track and makes sense to correlate with what's really going on.
That's a good point. I wouldn't mind that as long as it's something that shows, what our departments are doing and how they're coming up and down and how it affects our payroll.
And as I'm understanding these requests, I'm not sure how we would do it, but we also purchase a great amount of services externally. As you noted, we don't have in-house HR, but we do have a consultant who spends 4 hours each week focusing on us and is available for consultation. So those hours and services should also be understood and recognized as contributing to value that's delivered to the community.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of I guess for myself, kind of looking through just like the bullet point list that Sonia had sent over. I think a lot of the stuff is pretty relevant and useful. I don't really have a ton to add to like that list, and along with some of the other things, I do think like a visual format certainly is nice. We have to read through like a lot of paper sometimes and documents and reports and things. So sometimes it's nice to just have like a visual snapshot and overview of things. So I could see where that would be useful. I think maybe one thing that could be that I'm not seeing, and I don't know if it would be helpful or not, but if we had like a list or an ongoing list of like the contracts that we have with people, maybe, and that would cover what you were talking about, like that can summarize like how these external services that we're procuring for all the various different things.
Got it.
Stu?
When it comes to FTEs and things related to staffing, what's really important is actually whether you have the appropriate amount of staffing for what you need to do. And you know this, Joanne. So if that's actually included instead of direct FTEs, to me, that's a more important metric. Whether we're fully staffed, partially staffed, do we need to be hiring people, how that all relates to payroll. And I agree 100%, either a dashboard or visual format's usually the best mechanism for a general report, something that you can look at and actually decipher in a short period of time without having to spend a lot of time reading through the text.
Thanks.
Do we have any other discussion on that?
So in response to this feedback, what I'll do is go through the items that have been submitted and put together a consolidated list. And then perhaps create a little table where we can have must have, nice to have, don't need, something like that, like a little rating system. And then I can distribute that to y'all and you can give me your feedback that way. And then I can respond. That'll give me a little bit more time to work on the mechanisms for counting and keep us moving forward in terms of defining what needs to be counted.
Sound like a good plan to everyone?
Thank you, Joanne.
All right. We will move to the next item on the agenda, which is a capital request regarding playground ADA compliance. Pass it over to Joanne.
Thank you. The purpose of this request is to request contract approval and additional funds for the 2023 Playground ADA Improvements Project. As you remember, this project was previously approved on January 26th with SBCA Capital Code 9723.03. The project value at that time was set at $78,032.60. The 2023 ADA improvements for the playground was issued for bid to 8 contractors on March 23rd. SBCA received 4 bids in response on April 7th, 2023. You can refer to PNW's summary dated April 10th for the bid tabulations and bid documents. The Recreation Corridor Park was issued as a base bid, and the Gate 5 playground is an alternate for SBCA. We propose that you will authorize the award of the construction contract to Premium Services for the 2023 project. SBCA's standard construction contract was included with the bid documents in PNW's summary. There are a couple of options, though. We could choose simply to award the Recreation Corridor Park to Premium Services, or go ahead and award both of the projects to the same vendor, Premium Services. If we choose the first option of only the Recreation Corridor Park, it means that there would be a credit of $9,783.89. So it's the cost for the one park is almost as much as we allocated for the 2 parks. If we choose to do both parks, we would need to request additional funding from SURF in the amount of $29,834.48. It's expensive.
When I look at this and, the recreation corridor is one issue and the Gate 5 is another. And I look at the work being done on the Gate 5. And I guess my biggest question is for $29,000, if a handicapped child wants to use that park, how much more fun will they have? How much putting a parking spot and changing the surface in there and moving a swing, to me, if you're in a wheelchair, still does not make that a park where you can have fun. And I also know after talking to Whatcom County that A, they're not worried about these little tucked in community parks, and B, we only need to be spending 20% of the total amount of what was done. So I would be on the side of just doing the recreation corridor and leaving out the Gate 5.
Sonia?
So, just to be clear, I'm not sure who you talked with at Whatcom County, but we do know that we can be fined like $100,000 for once the playgrounds were touched and they are not in compliance, we have an obligation to bring them in compliance. Now, the thing about 20%, it doesn't, this is working within that 20%. the reason that we could potentially delay gate 5 has to do with, as long as you start the projects and you're in motion, they will not fine you. So as long as we're actively planning and we're planning to implement it, even if it's not this year, it's next year, and they see that we're making good efforts to do that. But ultimately, we don't have an option, because at this point they have been touched, and we can't say, well, it doesn't really matter now. You know, we have to bring them up to ADA standards. And this is minimal ADA standards.
Yeah, I have talked to a couple people at Whatcom, and I don't have their names. But it is a 20%. And they have also told me that if there's ever a complaint, they're not going to come in and find you hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're going to say, are you willing to change this? If you will, they will totally give you a time frame. And
so this is a federal.
I talked to Whatcom County
That's Whatcom
a few times.
Right, but this is a federal law.
The American Disabilities Act.
Okay, but they're not more ADA friendly.
It's Whatcom County that triggered this. It was Whatcom County that triggered this. After the flood event, Whatcom County was on site. Whatcom County told us these were not ADA compliant. There was they were supposed to be checking because there was raw sewage that had gone across, and we needed to ensure that the rec corridor playgrounds were safe. Instead, they told us we aren't ADA compliant and we need to bring them up to compliance or close that park, close that playground. That's what happened. Additionally, before those playgrounds were even worked on, there was an attorney memo that was sent to the general manager at the time explaining that because these are open to the public, if you do work in these areas, that they're required to be ADA compliant and meet these standards. So,
my understanding and everything I've talked to, it does not have to be 100% ADA compliant. It needs to have a percentage. So maybe we would direct corridor and table the gate 5 until we get further clarification.
Well,
We had a report done by a consulting firm to determine what needed to be done based on what we had previously done.
Well,
it's
I've
not
talked to
100
county a couple of times. That's what I've been told.
So these aren't completely ADA compliant playgrounds. They're partially ADA compliant. These are the minimum requirements. You know, so we're talking two issues here, just to be clear. One is that when we do them, we need to do them as the designer and the engineer determined, right? In conjunction with Whatcom County. This all went through Whatcom County permitting and this planning process. This has been going on since last year. So it was Whatcom County that put this into place with the designer. That being said, the second part is, do we do gate 5 or not? But there is no option of do we not do all of it.
Linda?
My understanding is, and may I ask Sonia, because I think she spoke to it, is that as long as we are working towards doing these improvements, if we can say, hey, you know, we got a bid that came back way over what was recommended, then I think I'm with Jaime on this. I think we should focus on the rec corridor play area. I think we're more likely to get people from outside of the community that come in and use that's important to do, especially the ADA, and it's mostly just access. It is, most of that equipment was bought that was basically ADA compliant. There's the swing set that's been there for forever, and that's what so that's the one thing.
And well, and the bigger part is the pea gravel, the fall surface, and that's actually the biggest expense too, because it has to be dug down so deep and then redone. So that's $20,000. Yeah.
I was curious. I know. I'd like to ask Joanne, they're going to charge us an arm and a leg to take that out of there. Is there any way that we can repurpose that?
One of the issues with used gravel is that it collects a lot of organic debris, which decomposes into an oil-like substance and makes it impractical for reuse. It would have to be washed.
Okay, thank you.
Just wondering if there's been a lot of correspondence back and forth between Whatcom County that said we had to do this. Is it possible for the board to have some of that documentation?
Emails.
Just the highlights.
I can request that, if the board so wishes, from our project manager. He manages all of that back and forth, and along with the vendors, of course.
Nancy.
Tommy, if you want it, do a public records request to Whatcom County.
Oh, maybe I'll do that.
Yeah, I was just wondering if it's possible, maybe we could get somebody from the county in here maybe to advise us a little bit about the parks. I have done a lot of ADA stuff, not in Washington State, but in California. And I would be in agreement with Timey and Linda on this. There are interpretations, and I understand Sonia's, but it can vary greatly. And before, as an association, we would spend a bunch of money. I think we should really behoove us to find out exactly what we really need to do.
I'll just repeat, we have a professional consultant who did a report for us that told us what we needed to do.
No,
So I guess my take is I'm gonna go with what the professionals are telling us we should do.
I totally
We
understand
went
that.
through the whole permitting process in Whatcom County, and this is what was determined was the appropriate thing to do. And it's been approved and permitted. So I'm not really sure like how getting someone from Whatcom County here, they've approved what we're doing. And have agreed with the project.
Okay, yeah, I understand what you're saying. So you could look at something and say, yeah, there's a lot of ADA upgrades or improvements that we could do to something, and anyone would agree with that, right? We could do anything. But what is really required of us to do?
That's what that report was, and that's how we moved all of this forward. That's what I'm saying. We had,
This is minimal requirements. We didn't ask for additional. This is
Okay.
minimal, like what we were.
the report outlined the parts that we had touched, that we replaced
With
and
the
did
peat
work
gravel.
to, and outlined what we needed to do to bring those in compliance, and then also looked at our other parks and said, these are things you can do, but they're not required.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you very
So
much.
it was delineated in that report.
Okay, thank
Linda?
Once again, I would recommend, like Timey did, that we move forward with the rec corridor. Because we know we need to do that. I think it's gonna see the most amount of people from outside of our community that might use it, besides the people within the community. But since we're, it's within the budget, and I think that's what's important. And if we need to add something in the reserve study moving forward, we can do that then. And still meet our budget for this year.
Stu?
First, I think in one of my first meetings, you provided that report, didn't you, AJ? Isn't that
included
In our tour package?
in tour package? Okay, yeah, I seem to recall reading it at some point in time. Didn't memorize it, sorry. But I would agree, since the corridor is within budget, that we start focusing on that. And then continue, and maybe not evaluation, but just hold off on doing gate 5 until we reevaluate the budget and make sure that we're adequately budgeted for.
I'd like to interject. I'm not really sure why we're giving primacy to a rec corridor and not to gate 5, because that's part of our community as well, an important part of our community, number one. And number two, one of the reasons maybe why this is so expensive was wasn't some of this playground work originally done through volunteering? Maybe Parks and Trails or something. And so that gives that kind of lends I don't know, that kind of is a problem with ad hoc committees in general. We have people who aren't, who don't have the ability to do the work, right? They're not trained. We had people behind our house build a trail.
Brian?
Yes. Oh, sorry. Excuse me. We had people build a trail behind our house that is a connector trail, right, to the Lake Louise Trail. And and it's ridiculously steep, and there's no reason to build a trail like that. It would have been easy to tack down the hill. But it was inadequately built, and it was directed by somebody, and nobody really owned up to it. It's very strange. But anyhow, so yeah, and that's what we're concerned with. When you think about it, I mean, I'm sorry to get off topic, but the EPC as well. It's an issue, or the Emergency Planning Committee. Having untrained people thinking about emergencies in this community. I'm not sure. I love my neighbors, but I'm not sure I want them planning out my emergency escape plan, right? If we need a plan, if we need to update our plan, let's do it. If we have a plan, let's convey it to the community, But I do feel that we should, if we're going to do the rec corridor, we should do both. I mean, it's why not? If we have the money budgeted, do we have them? It comes from SURF, right? Is that what you're saying? So yeah, we might as well do it now.
Well, one question I would have on that, or maybe an argument against that, is once you touch something, don't you have to then further go with compliance? So if you start touching something that wasn't on radar and now we put it on radar because we try to make it ADA compliant, how far do we go with that?
Well, I mean, this is based on a consultant, and we've got the permits and everything.
Okay, well, again, so I was a consultant in California, and so I could go into a gas station and I could find, say, 50 items that needed to be corrected, federally speaking, for ADA. But county-wise or city-wise, depending on where my inspections were at, we're only required to approach a certain amount of that, a dollar amount. So that's all I was saying. I understand professionals are doing it, but how far do we go?
Well, this is how far they told us to go.
Well, like if I was doing it, I'd be telling you to go all the way because that's my job as a consultant for ADA.
Well, not really. We're asking the consultant to tell us what is required per the work that we had previously done to said park.
Perfect.
Not what is every possible ADA.
There you go.
This is what we need to do to be in compliance.
Thank you for that clarification.
Nancy, then I think Sonia, and then Michael.
We've already gotten the permits. We've budgeted the money. I think it shows bad faith if we bail on it. So I would think we do them both. We've told the county we're doing them both. And it will help us maybe next year when we don't do any or in the future when we choose to do something. But I think it is a mistake to bail on this. We ought to do them both.
I think Stu had his hand up.
Oh my God. Well, I saw Sonia's hand.
Before me.
I saw Sonia's hand when Brian was talking. Nancy's too. So Sonia and Michael, then Stu.
And then Brian.
Yeah.
Okay, then.
Well, one of the things I wanted to point out was economy of scale regarding these two things. So we budgeted 75,000 this year and 75,000 next year. So we broke them out, the parks that needed to be done. That was based on the engineer's report, the designers anticipated prediction of what the expenditures would be. And what you're going to see tonight on almost all of these capital requests is that they're all over. Inflation and material costs have gone up so significantly, and at least in any time in the near future, we're not seeing that that's going to go down. It's just going to continue to increase. So for me, I'm looking at that potentially what we can do is ask them to really drill down, try to focus on that economy of scale, see if, we can't, by having the same company working both of them, we may be able to save because they'll buy, bulk product and everything like that, and they'll be on site because it's also a cost to implement them, whatever it's called, to get them on site. And so if it's not done this year, it's going to have to be done next year. It was 75,000 for next year. And again, those are additional. We're going to have to, readjust that for next year's budget, obviously, but that was our plan.
I would like to see why it's so much over the engineers.
It's material cost. Yeah,
Did they say that?
yeah, it's in the, that report attached to the request.
There's Michael and Stu. Brian,
In Brian's comment about ad hoc committees and stuff, I'm gonna save a lot of my comment about that, but the emergency preparedness isn't a bunch of people just hammering out dirt on a trail. They were fire marshals and people that have done the input, all came from other counties and other municipalities that put in a lot of work to get the effort there. It's not just some ho-hum coming up with an idea. So you might want to read that packet that was emailed to the board. There's some really great information in it. But looking at the numbers here, my question was, okay, so we have the request for $68,000 to do the rec corridor, and then it's only another 30 to do, you know, the difference that we're adding is another 30. Is that because they're already out here and got a crew and stuff going to save the money?
That's part of it. The other is just that gate 5 isn't, there's not. as
It's
much
less work. Okay. But it seems like if you got them already out here and they've got the material, they could probably save money in buying more of what they got, even though everything's really up, as we all know. I would say do both of them together because it would be more cost effective to have them come out once and do it. And that's my opinion anyway.
Stu?
Yeah, and I agree with that. And, you know, just to clarify, it's not whether we should do both. It's the fact that it's over budget. And the budget needs to be adjusted and we need to understand why it's over budget. So it's not a fact of whether it needs to be done or not. I'll agree 100% that it probably needs to be done if that's what the consultants are recommending, but it's over budget. We need to know why it's over budget, and we need to figure out if we can adjust our budget to where we can afford it.
Sam was next. Yes.
I do have a question about building anything for outside people to come and use the park. I'd never ever consider that because that's just not what we're doing here is building for somebody else. It's our in-house use. We gain nothing by even posting or trying to draw people in with the added traffic. We don't get anything out of that except we're having to take care of stuff that's meant for us. And you know, I don't mind people coming in and using parks, but it's definitely not something I would ever consider building to draw people out here to sit in our parks. And if that was the case too, that park over there near the road is in the same situation of people coming by and they see that park. They actually would see that park at gate 5 more readily driving down the road, driving around past our community. And they would see that and they'd be using that. But the other, my main concern is where's this fit in the budget doing both parks?
Linda and Sonia, then I'm gonna go.
I was gonna say, we were talking economy of scale and stuff, and yet the company that we selected to do that is suggesting that it's necessary to be charged mobilization for both parks. If they're gonna do the work at the same time, I would think that they would be able to remove one of those. I think the biggest thing is taking the pea gravel out and disposing of it, and also the material that that they're using to resurface the playgrounds with is really expensive.
So I was going to make a suggestion because it sounds like to me, if I'm understanding the comments, that we all agree that we need to go forward with the rec corridor ADA. The issue isn't about moving forward with gate 5, but that it's over budget and everybody's
Can I
wanting.
say something just to be clear? So per Tyler's report, the engineer's estimate on the rec corridor park is $33,500, and the quote from Premium is an increase of $25,000 on the rec corridor. The gate 5 playground engineer's estimate is just under $28,000, and Premium Services quote came in $11,000 over that. So the gate 5 project is not $30,000 over budget. The rec corridor park is $25,000 over the engineer's estimate, and the Gate 5 playground is $11,000 over the engineer's estimate. And that's where we get to 30,000 over, just so everyone's clear on that.
Yeah, because
So
it was
it's
a
not
total.
like Gate 5 is blowing the budget or whatever, you know, and we do have 70,000 next year. So if the concern is the budget, you know, we can adjust that budget and deal with that with this upcoming budgeting season, I would think. Sorry, just wanted to clarify that because I felt like everyone was like thinking it was just one part that's like way over budget, but it's a mixture of the two. Sorry, do you have something else?
Well, I was going to suggest that we just move forward with the first motion, and then we could we can actually drill down on those questions, right? Where, you know, like Linda was like asking, there's 2 mobilization charges and a couple of things like that. And that maybe we could see if some of those numbers, I don't know that they can be adjusted, but we can.
No.
Yeah, no. Okay. I don't know.
That's you just eliminated a competitive bid by doing that.
Oh.
So the mobilization fees, being it broken out into the multiple schedules, you know, you have the mobilization fees shown in there. There's still one for the culvert, which was bid with this stuff too, to try to get economy of scale. And like all those, you know, if we were going to ask them to take one of the mobilization fees away, they would be within their right to then be like, okay, well, one of them, then my mobilization fee for the one park project of both things is just doubled. Like they just spread their mobilization fee across the 2 bids, basically, is how the contractor would handle that. I mean, I guess I personally think I agree with what I think it was Nancy, maybe I can't remember, it was Brian, but like we permitted it, we've designed it, we've bid it, everything is more expensive, nothing is getting cheaper. That's not how this country works. Like we can all hold out hope that that's how it works, but I don't think that's the way this world's going. Like I don't think it's going to get any cheaper next year. It's just going to end up costing us more money because labor will cost more next year. Materials will likely cost more next year, you know. So I guess I would be in favor of just doing both. Do we want to just have an informal raise of hands on option 1 versus option 2, basically? So we can say all those in favor of option 1, they would raise their hands, and that's just the rec corridor. All those in favor of option 2, that would be the rec corridor and playground of Gate 5. And then once we do that, we could make the motion, the official motion based on that. Would that work for people?
Option 2 is it's just the order.
Well, we have to, yeah, motion 1 is to approve the contract.
The credit of $9,700.
We've already approved.
Sorry, option 1 and option 2 are up under proposal. Not under the motions. The motions we would do after this little informal vote. So we have like a majority decision of the board on whether we do one playground or both. Is kind of what I'm getting at. And then we can make an official motion to approve awarding a contract. And then another motion to allocate additional funds or decrease funds to the project that we currently have open.
A little confusing because I think motion 1 looks like it's already been for their proposal. So motion 2 is motion 2 and 3.
No, I'm saying go to proposal, not the
first page.
not the motions. Under the first page, there's option 1 and option 2. We award just the rec corridor, or we award both of them.
Talk option. Motion 1. Okay, I'm talking motion 2 and motion 3.
Yes.
Option
Those
2.
option 1 is motion 2, option 3, but we're not going to make the motion until we decide which direction we're going to do, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, well, look at
As a board, we need to make the decision as a majority which direction we're going. I think most people have said it. I just want it as a hand vote, so it's somewhat official. Is that okay with everybody? Okay, so all those who are in favor of option one, which is just the rec corridor park, raise your hand, please.
Just the rec corridor?
Yeah. That's Timmy and Linda. All those in favor of option two. All right, so we'll move forward with option two. All right, so the first motion for this. Huh?
Go ahead.
What doesn't make sense? No.
No, go ahead.
I was trying to come to a determination on whether we were going to do both, because our motion that we make to approve funds depends on whether we were going to do that or not. That makes sense?
Yeah, you could combine motion one with motion.
Sure, I can do that. I can just make one motion. You're right.
Because it sounds like that's how the vote's gonna come out anyways.
Okay. I'll move that the board of directors approve contract award to Premium Services for the 2023 playground ADA improvements per their proposal dated 4/7/23, and that the board of directors additionally approve a change order to allocate an additional $29,834.48 from the SURF fund for the construction of the rec corridor park and gate 5 playground ADA improvements.
Second.
All right, any more discussion? Call the question. I'm not going to repeat that because I just said it. All those in favor? All those opposed? Timmy and Linda are opposed. The rest are in favor. That's approved. All right, we will move on to the next item, which is another capital request for culvert 315. I'll pass it back to Joanne.
Thanks, AJ. So the purpose of this request is to request contract approval and additional funds for the replacement of culvert C315. This project was previously approved in 2021 and assigned SVCA Capital Code 9921.05. The 2021 capital request can be found in PNW's attachment. Culvert C315 was previously identified for replacement by Wilson Engineering in the 2015 Culvert Capital Improvement Plan. The culvert is at the end of its life cycle and the old pipe is failing. Replacement is recommended before the culvert collapses in Polo Park Drive. Replacement of culvert C315 was issued for bid to 8 contractors on March 23rd, 2023. SVCA received 4 bids from contractors when the bids were due on April 7th. Refer to PNW's summary dated April 10th for the bid tabulation and bid documents. Proposal. Authorize award of construction contract to Premium Services for replacement of culvert C315. SVCA's standard construction contract is included with the bid documents in PNW's summary. Also, authorize a change order increase of $166,914.68 to Capital Code 9921.05 for replacement of culvert C315. A description of this change order increase is included in PNW's summary. SVCA's 2023 budget included $750,000 for 2023 road reconstruction and drainage. A portion of this $750,000 is proposed to cover this change order. So basically the money would just come out of roads to fix a road. Makes sense. Or to do preventive maintenance on a road. So the first request is to approve the issuing of a contract to Premium Services for the replacement of culvert C315. And the second request is to authorize $166,914.68 from roads to increase the value of Capital Code 9921.05 for the replacement of culvert C315. Thank you.
All right, any discussion on that? Linda?
I just have one question. I'm assuming then, even though we're increasing this request by a large amount of money, we're leaving, there was a 10% contingency in the original. Are we just leaving that 28,000 in there, and is that gonna cover what they need?
Yeah, we're leaving it in there.
Oh, I know you're leaving it in.
Yeah,
What I'm
that
saying
it's
is,
anticipated. This should cover it.
okay, it's just not 10% anymore, that's all.
Yeah.
That was my question. Also, do we require a mitigation of savings account with the county for this? Because I noticed there are plantings, and I don't see that included anywhere in the cost of the project.
That's already been set up and in process, because we actually approved this earlier, and then through the permitting process, it was required in the earlier part of the permitting process, like several months ago, before we got to the bids.
You know how much that is then?
I don't recall.
That's, no, because that's held up money.
Yeah, it's
I'm sorry, I don't remember the total, Linda. I do remember the back and forth to set it up, so I can get the number for you. Shall I just make a note of that?
Yeah, that's all. I'm just curious, because it's like, that's something that's always part of our financials, and it's always held up, and I think it's 5 years unless they've changed it. Thank you.
Yeah, usually plantings are 5 years, sometimes 10 if it's wetlands. Keith?
Yeah, just a quick question. So, who is it? Is Tyler, is he our project manager for Sudden Valley? So then he will oversee this. So some of the line items, you know how they have, like 10,000 for sewer diversion or utility conflicts or whatever. Those are just budget line items. And so to someone actually watching that to see, it might only be 3,500 or 7,800 they use, not the full 10,000. Do we allow them just to bill that entire line item?
No, there's a monthly meeting where every single line item is gone over and adjustments are made appropriately.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Yeah, those are force account items, so they're on a time and materials basis as, needed, and yeah, Tyler and impact of this design would be the people overseeing those as needed repairs. Like with the county, when I have that in my contracts, like contractor can't use that until I say, they have to give me a scope, schedule, budget, and I have to approve that, and then, and then they can do, and then we track time and materials as they do the work. So just to clarify, Linda, that is a form of contingency in some fashion. There is force account items for time materials in the bid.
I just was wondering, because it's so much more. And we had, the 10%, and if he thinks 28,000 will cover it, good deal, because at a $400,000 project, you're looking at 43 instead of.
Yeah. I mean, I see.
Just checking.
I see 30. I think it's 30,000 in force account there.
It's fine as long as that's enough. That's all I.
All right, well, I'll do a motion, and if there's more discussion, we can have it. Move that the board of directors approve contract award to Premium Service for the replacement of culvert C 315 per Schedule A of their proposal dated 4/7/23, and that the board of directors approve the allocation of a change order of an additional $166,914.68 from the roads fund to cover said change order.
Second.
Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor will call the question. That passes unanimously. All right, we'll move on to the next capital request, which is 6E. We remove 6D. I think that'll come back next week. And so this is for Firewise.
This one's easier. The purpose is to request approval for funding our annual Firewise and roadside cleanup services. Removing vegetation reduces the risk of fire, keeps ditches and culverts clear, and improves the appearance of properties. Beginning last year, the Firewise program was expanded to include the cleanup of roadsides throughout the community. So it's not just by appointment. Every road has the opportunity to put out brush and be cleared. Each area of the association is assigned a schedule for picking up debris. Residents bring it to the roadside and maintenance picks it up and chips it. At the same time, maintenance is pulling all of the vegetation that's immediately accessible to them in the ditches and culverts. So it's not just what residents bring out, it's also what's present there blocking the culverts, potentially, or the ditches. In past years, allocations from UDR were used to pay for this activity, but beginning next year in 2024, this activity will become an operational line item, so we won't have to bring it in front of the board again. In 2022, Firewise was completed with a 4-person crew and took place over a 5-week time frame. Expenditures included renting a large capacity wood chipper to facilitate chipping a large amount of material over an extended period. This approach worked well, and we propose to repeat it in 2023. I've included a summary of costs. There's supervisory of 40 hours, labor of 800 hours, and the chipper rental. Now, we do have an SVCA chipper, but this is such an extended activity that it would be too much wear and tear on our equipment. Last year, for example, during this project, they had to call out the rental company 3 times to fix the chipper. So I think it's an excellent idea to rent one for $4,000, which is a total of $31,600. So I request that an allocation of $31,600 be made from UDR to cover the costs of this important project, Firewise, in 2023.
All right. We'll just start with a motion that the board approve the allocation not to exceed $31,600 from UDR to cover the costs of Firewise program in 2023. Second. Any discussion? Michael?
To back up what Joanne said, I managed a rental company for about 5 years, and the chipper was the most expensive repair item that we had.
I could see a lot of grinding pieces in that piece of machine.
I would like to add into that. I'd run the Sudden Valley's chipper for about 8 months, and we did it. We worked it pretty hard, but not like what this does. And the idea now, hopefully everybody's got big branches and you're just going to be slamming it. And we also had to repair our chipper, and they are very expensive. So yes, if we don't need that type of wear and tear on ours, and we can avoid that, because that's the rental cost is what it would cost to fix ours for doing this project. So that's a good call.
Any other discussion? All right, the motion on the table was to allocate $31,600 from UDR for Firewise. All those in favor? All right, that passes unanimously.
What happens with all the chips?
Great question. So there used to be the chip depository on Lake Louise, and that was actually maintained by the county, and everyone loved it. People got wood chips. The tree companies loved it, and we loved it. And the county has begun removing all of those areas. They had them throughout the county, and the reasoning.
They still have one up at their central shop. I think on Smith is where they're now.
Bringing it all
Somewhere I saw an announcement from them. I'd have to go find it.
Yeah. So anyway, we know this
That's
because
long
Mike
ways from here.
Brock has called a couple of times to try and convince the county to leave it. It was such a good arrangement, but because people dumped trash in that area, and then the county had to come out and remove it and blah, blah, et cetera. They've decided to discontinue the sort of the outer stations of chips. So they have the central one. So Mike and I have discussed making wood chips available in the firewood area at Area Z. We don't want to gunk up the overflow parking with it because we're coming into the time of building. And builders stage a lot of stuff there and park there. But we're going to put it in the firewood area And it's been reorganized and graded, so it's a little less muddy to get in and out of there. And there will be a small pile of wood chips that we maintain because we always have them available. So we'll continue the service to the community. It'll be less convenient, but at least there will be a source of wood chips.
We don't really want community to be going all in Area Z, so you'll be putting out when it's the schedule is and when that's available, correct?
There's two entrances to that firewood area. There's one that's actually outside the gate. So you can get in there after hours. People prefer to get into it from the inside of Area Z because it's less muddy. But that's why I addressed that there has been some regrading and additional gravel put down. So it's not quite as muddy as it was before, although at this time of year, everything's muddy.
I just was out the other day after signing checks, and it came by, and thought I'd just turn around because I decided to go to the market. But then there was Mike Brock out there at Area Z, and he was looking at right there at the entrance into Area Z for the placement of the chip piles. And so he's looking at a few spots, but they've also added for all the residents out there, it's like they did put big rock or quarry spall, big stuff, which is meant to get mud off of tires so that when people come in there and go back out on the road, it's a requirement you don't smear mud all over the road. So we have a big rock driveway going into that area. So anybody that wants to use that, they better have some decent tires with tread. Bald tires don't like those big rocks, those nasty rocks, but it's a good setup to get in and out of there. So he's getting that set up, and it's this side of the closed down gate, which means, people could still go in, to get their RVs, but it's that same spot to where everybody can access it without having to have the gate open to get in there. So people could go down there early and late, and it looks really good. So he should have that set up. And the other thing I wanted to bring up was, previously we had done a thing of chipping and filling a chipper, and then people requested loads of the chipper, and that was a hell of an idea. We didn't have to come back and dump that chipper truck, but when people actually ordered they wanted a whole load, because we really couldn't get a half a load out of the truck. Once it started coming out, it's done. And so they're not going to do that. We're not going to take orders. That's what Mike said, because it's just not manageable. And then once you do dump a pile of that chip, people are surprised how much it is when you dump a whole load there. Yeah. And you got to be prepared for everyone in the neighborhood to bring their wheelbarrows at that point. So he had said, and I kind of agree with that idea, that you come get what you need. And because that's the best way for it to work in there, and they're going to go out and scour the neighborhoods and pick up everything we put out, and it should look like it should work well.
We had wood chips for like 3 years after one of those dumps.
I don't know. I saw Keith first, and there was Linda then after Keith.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify something, Joanne. I saw that on the Firewise thing that none of the branches can be cut; they have to be like naturally broke off the tree or something. And so my question is, I've had a couple trees that actually snapped, they're like 60 foot long and there's still branches attached. I would normally go out and cut those off and then haul them up to have them chipped. But I just read that this year, and it's the first time I saw that.
Well, I can assure you that nobody is going to be sorting through your debris pile and discarding the parts of it that were cut. But I don't think it would be a legitimate use of Firewise to say to your tree guy, don't haul the stuff you just cut and take some off my bill because I'll just put it out for Firewise. That sort of would be an abuse. Does that make sense?
That would be all right then. No issues there.
Yeah. We're not gonna sort through your pile and ding you.
Linda and Brian.
For a while, there used to be a pile that maintenance put by the gardens there too in Area Z. Maybe not when you worked. I'm just saying.
That was there, that pile, and it was a mess. That's a mess to get into that area, and it's a bog, and so he's and also that keeps people out of area Z where we got trucks and stuff rolling all the time. And so they're just keeping everybody out of that area for that particular purpose. People can still access that garden area. And that's all we want back in there because, yeah, just like Mike said, it's like I remember when we were using that area and people coming back in there, it was that mud would get to be 2 feet deep. And it was a mess and everybody driving on. It was just a horrible mess back in there. So he's going to keep it out there where they've managed that rock and the access in there to get that. And the rain will wash down any kind of mud and those rocks. And so that's way better. So, yeah, and he's keeping everybody out of the traffic area of Area Z's work.
Brian, do you have some?
No, my question's answered.
Okay. Anyone else? Remember, a bunch of hands shot up all at once. Okay, I think we're done with that one. So moving on to 6F, approval request for pool services agreement. Back to Joanne.
Yes, so the purpose is to request approval for the 2023 pool services agreement with Sesco Solutions. Sesco Solutions has provided chemicals and pool services to SVCA for many years. They've done a good job maintaining the health and the safety of our pools. To obtain a permit for operating a public pool, a certified pool operator must be under contract, and Sesco satisfies that requirement. The proposed 2023 pool services agreement is very similar to the agreement approved last year in 2022, but the estimated costs are about 36% higher. The table below shows the breakout of costs by category and shows a comparison to the 2022 costs. I do want to add to this that these are estimates. We're actually only charged for the chemicals that we use and the labor that we use. And so the use of chemicals is extremely variable because of the rate of evaporation based on the ambient temperature, the amount of water that gets splashed out of the pool and has to be replaced, all these many factors, like how many people use the pool, because you take chlorine out when you get out of the pool. So it would be impossible to precisely estimate what was going to be used. So this is a parameter. The column that's labeled 2022 costs is what we actually paid. Okay, it's not what was estimated, it's what we actually paid. And the 2023 column is what's estimated. Okay, I looked into a variety of options because I was shocked at that number. I guess I shouldn't have been given what we actually spent last year, but I called around, and the larger pools that are open year round because they're inside, they actually have certified pool operators on staff. So Mike and I looked into that, and we can't do it for this year, but there is the potential that we could have a person on staff receive that certification and then act in that role for us in the future. But for this year, I don't think we can do better than Sesco. I called around and looked for different operators, and they would have to come from a pretty great distance, and they wouldn't know our pool. So in this instance, I would recommend going with Sesco again. So I request that the board of directors approve the 2023 pool services agreement with Sesco.
Just a quick question: is these ones were blank here? Is it the same number across both years for the startup stuff?
Yeah, the thing is that I took the upper stuff from the estimate in the contract, but that total number is the actual total.
Okay.
Because I couldn't split out from the invoices. Like, do you know what I mean? Like they're just monthly invoices, so I didn't know how much was startup chemicals and how much was supply of chemicals. If that makes any sense. Yeah, from last year. But so to be clear, in the 2022 column, these first couple numbers those were on the estimate. So the estimates, you can compare the estimates, but this total at the bottom of the 2022 column is what we spent.
Actuals.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we'll just start with a motion quick, and then we can have discussion. I'll move that the board of directors approve the 2023 pool services agreement with Sesco Solutions. Any discussion?
So we've had some complaints about our ADA lifts at the pools, that sometimes their batteries go dead. I'm not certain if our staff looks at that because sometimes it goes for a month. And I know that one year when they thought needed to do a whole bunch of work on the lift, Dennis came out and said, you know, the only thing you need to do is charge your battery. And I'm not certain if they do that. And it's just, I almost wish Cesco could take a look at that because I think that they have you know, they know to do that. I don't know if we have enough. I know if we only have two, we probably should have one, that if one goes out, it's sitting
Swap.
on the charger and you just plug it in and it's fixed.
Swap it out.
The other thing I wanted to say that's interesting is after looking at the pools for the year, that initially at the end of the year, the maintenance contract came to $61,660.90. And it's because all sorts of interesting things got charged to that. Water, utility rates per month, natural gas per month, the uniforms for the
Lifeguards.
different things like that. There's even something in here that's called a line item for Lake Whatcom Water and Sewer District for 1850 Lake Whatcom Boulevard. Don't know why it's all in here. It's really neat. That's what happens when you guys get DL. Because I start looking at this stuff because some of it doesn't
Right.
make sense.
So
But Cesco absolutely is right around that $40,000 number. It's just all this other stuff.
right. So to get that number, I took that portion of the GL and I added all the Cesco line items together with my little calculator. But those utility charges are applicable to the pool. There are meters there, so we know
Not management. That's my only complaint.
what,
Is why would you put water service and gas service to a specific number of 6438, which is called pool
So
management?
there was a leak last year. So Cisco, remember we had to do that repair and we became aware of the leak in the middle of pool season. The option was to shut the pool down in the middle. We have such a short cycle, but instead we decided that we would monitor it. That caused us to have to, Cisco had to come out multiple times a week, not only to they had special equipment on there to monitor the water levels because of the health department and everything, but also the chemical levels. They had to come out because we were losing water. That's what those charges are, is they're associated with the leak and having to monitor and manage what was going on. It was additional on top of
But it's not
the regular
Cesco.
service.
It's not Cesco. It's from Lake Whatcom Water.
Right, we got a lot of additional issues and charges from Lake Whatcom. All of that was associated with the pool.
But it wouldn't be management. You'd put that under their utilities, wouldn't you?
I'm not exactly sure what the line item is, but that's why it's there, is because it was part of that leak and the pool leak. What we can do is, it was pretty expensive. The option would have been to close the main pool down for almost the whole pool season.
No, but why wouldn't you still put water and the gas under utilities for the rec center where it is where it was the rest of the year?
yeah, I made a note to ask. That's kind of a Joel question.
Any other discussion? All right, we'll call the question. The motion on the table is that the board of directors approve the 2023 pool services agreement with Cesco Solutions. All those in favor? All right, that passes unanimously. Move on to the last item, which is
Private pool, the adult pool.
capital request for Welcome Center HVAC. Sorry, what?
Does this include the adult pool too?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead, John.
Awesome. So I'm here to request approval for the purchase of an HVAC system for the Welcome Center. The Welcome Center is heated by electric wall heaters that operate independently. There is no cooling system currently installed. For the comfort of both staff and guests and to ensure that temperatures remain at an appropriate and consistent level, an HVAC system is needed. In the fall of 2022, 3 local HVAC contractors were asked to provide recommendations for how best to heat and cool the building. When asked to update their bids in 23, only one of the contractors responded, and they have not yet updated their quote. A 4th contractor, Mars Heating and Air Conditioning, was brought in to provide an estimate. While all of the contractors suggested installing heat pumps, the recommendations differed on the type and number of units needed. A summary of the quotes provided is shown in the table. I recommend going forward with Mars Heating and Air Conditioning. Their estimate is more thorough and comprehensive than the others we received. A detailed analysis of the structure was completed with an overview provided of why the system they recommend is the best option over alternative methods. Additionally, their pricing includes elements of work that the lowest bidder did not, such as electrical work. Mars Heating also includes a lifetime workmanship warranty, as well as a 1-year satisfaction guarantee. The estimate and supplemental information that Mars Heating provided make them the preferred option, even if the other vendors had updated and honored their original quotes, which to this point they have not. In the 2023 capital budget, $40,000 was allocated to the replacement of a portion of the HVAC system serving the clubhouse. Repairs were made in 2022 to the HVAC system at the clubhouse, and it is functioning appropriately. I recommend deferring the clubhouse HVAC repair and using that budgeted amount to fund this project. I request that the SVCA Board of Directors approve the allocation of $48,404 from SURF for the installation of an HVAC system in the Welcome Center.
All right. I'll move that the Board of Directors approve the allocation of $48,404 from the SURF fund for the installation of the HVAC system in the Welcome Center from Mars Heating and Air Conditioning.
Second.
Discussion? Sam? Linda?
A quick review of the equipment that they were talking about. I do like Mars because they're using an air handler mounted inside versus the heat pumps with piping external and all those head units throughout the place, which is subject to problems on the exterior of the building. I could see doing it at a house. It's like you're just looking to do something real quick, but any type of piping on the exterior is subject to a problem. And I do like the fact they're actually using using the ductwork and an air handler inside. And so it's an actual heating air conditioning unit versus one that is piped everywhere and you've got refrigerant lines all over the place, because they usually can't get them into the walls because you almost have to tear the walls out to do that because of all the obstructions in walls. So they end up putting that stuff on the exterior. It does cost a bit more to put in the air handler inside, but then that's out of the weather and they work really well.
Linda, then Keith?
Sam, are you talking about splits that they sometimes put in when they do where you either can do heat or?
It's talking about ductless, I think, versus.
Yeah, it's ductless. Yeah, so they end up, you have pumps, yet you're piping refrigerant in the pipes instead of having ductwork. So you pump the refrigerant to these little evaporator systems mounted up high on walls, which is another obstruction in the building. And it happens a lot. People just add that quickly at their house because it's convenient. It's like, and you can do that without changing all the ductwork.
But there is no ductwork in that building, correct? So part
Yeah,
of the cost is they're going to have to.
The ductwork would be under in the crawl space. And so, yeah, so they have access to do this installation and they're going to do the electrical, which a lot of folks, it's like you start stressing out your hookup. You've got to have some electrical done when you're starting to add something that's going to take 220 volts.
Gotcha. So the only question that I have, or the only concern I have, is I'm looking at the clubhouse HVAC. What needs to be replaced is a unit that was put in service in 2007. that unit has exceeded its useful life and has this number there for useful life. I don't think that you should rob Peter to pay Paul. You know, when the board purchased that building, they knew there was no air conditioning. And I rather than, I certainly don't, you know, fine, you know, this is the kind of thing that some of us were concerned about when this building was purchased, without putting it before the membership, is that this kind of stuff would come up in expenses.
So
Sonia, please don't
no,
interrupt.
actually, you're out of order when you start commenting like that on a vote that the board's already taken. We did vote for that and we
Yes,
did
but
purchase the building.
That's what I'm saying. And I said, you did this without putting it before the membership. Never question that. What I'm saying is, I think that you still need to look, since the unit that's in the clubhouse that needs to be replaced has exceeded its useful life, that this part of the memo is not that you're going to use that 40,000 and then just let it go again. And then what if it goes? You know, we've had trouble with it every year for years now. That's all.
Keith, then Stu, then Timmy.
Yeah, the only thing I noticed on here at the bottom, it's got asterisks on it, says this system is designed to heat and cool the offices on the north side of the building only. And I was just curious on to why that.
Yeah, they're proposing a different solution for the south side, and the two together are a whole house solution or a whole building solution.
Yeah, that explains the next one. Thank you.
Just a couple comments. One to Linda's point, I would not take the clubhouse HVAC repair off the budget. I would leave it there, and then we'll just figure out the funds to do the welcome center. That's what I would suggest, because if that's past its useful life, it's probably going to need more work. The other thing is, and I don't know about remodels, which this would fall under, but for new construction, Whatcom County actually requires that you put in ductless systems. You have to pay additional fees if you don't put in a ductless system. I know that very well because I didn't want a ductless system. I think they're ugly and I don't think they work very well. So you have to pay extra fees for that. So I'm not quite sure if that's included in the proposal or not, or if the permitting even affects remodels or not, but a new construction that's actually required to do ductless.
Goes Timmy, then Sonia, then Nancy.
I'm on the same page as Linda. I mean, we bought this building. I know there is a window air conditioning unit on the one side of the building. I'm never good with north and south, but there is, so I remember that unit running for a while. I mean, this building's been going for 30 years without a whole HVAC system. If it's getting overheated in the summertime, you could just tint the windows on the sunny side. That would lower your summer temperatures and would be a very inexpensive solution. But we have continually, we put a new deck in there. We've done the parking lot. So we have spent money above and beyond that 1 point whatever million dollars to buy that building. So another expense on this building that is just for offices. I have a real hard time with it, but if you wanted to tint the windows, that's a low cost. I'd be okay with that. No, it's in the proposal, but
Sonia?
Alternative.
Sure. I have a real hard time with always deferring the comfort and environment of our staff who spend most of their waking hours, working in this association. You've seen where they worked over at the clubhouse. That expense for that AC that was in there for this year, number one, was intended to help with the air conditioning and the environment for staff. All of that staff is no longer over there. They're over at the Welcome Center. So it actually would not, it's just deferring it because there was enough work. We've had conversations with Barron Heating and also Mike Block, and that AC is not planned to be replaced. There's this year. It's simply deferring it. It's not, it doesn't go off of the reserve study, even though it's sitting at 0. That means it'll go over into next year. So it's still there. It just means we weren't planning to use that money this year anyway. It's not getting a lot of use because all of the employees are out of there and they're over another building. So this is about the year-round comfort of staff and also the guests that go in there. And, because again, it is our administrative offices. So we're trying to treat it like our administrative office, the way we schedule to do it over at the clubhouse. Instead, we're just focusing on that comfort level over at the Welcome Center this year. And then we'll evaluate as we move forward into the budgeting season of, does it look like we need to replace that unit next year?
What if you need to replace it this year?
Well, if we do,
that's why all I'm saying is just leave the money in there for it. This is a new building.
This doesn't take the ability for the board to fund the HVAC unit at the clubhouse away. It's within our authority to do so.
Yeah, it's just, what the point of it was just to show that it really wasn't appropriate to take it out of UDR because it's just a different use of we're taking out SURF. So if we didn't do it this way, we would be taking it.
Just make it unbudgeted. That's all I'm saying. Just leave the 40 in there for the clubhouse in case you have a unit that is way past 15 years. And leave that in there, but just use whatever you need to do the Welcome Center. I don't object. What I object of is where you're talking about robbing Peter to pay Paul.
So I'll tell you what I'm concerned about, and I don't know if it's about taking it from UDR.
No, just take it from SURF is unbudgeted.
Can we do that?
Can.
So, Linda, your hiccup is just the wording of one sentence in Joanne's memo, basically, but the board's not approving her entire memo. We're approving just the allocation of funds for this project. That doesn't change the fact that we
on the table.
Continue to make sure the clubhouse HVAC is included in our budget moving forward.
Right. But this is an unbudgeted item. Should it be coming from SURF if we're doing it like that? Unless we're
okay.
You're allowed to do that.
Okay.
State law says you're allowed to.
Well, I always thought you had to pay it back. You have to have a plan to pay it back.
All right. Any other discussion? All right. We'll call the question. The motion was that the board of directors approve the allocation of $48,404 from the SURF fund for the installation of an HVAC system in the Welcome Center based on the proposal of Mars Heating and Air Conditioning. All right, all those in favor? Any opposed? All right, one opposed, that's timing. The rest in favor, that's approved. All right, do we have a motion to move into closed session?
Move to go into closed session.
Okay. All those in favor? All right, we'll go downstairs.
A different color.
He has
Some people have submitted
No. Those chairs, no.
Typically they
Are the
I don't know that they did either. I don't know.
because I'm repainting my house this year. And
Oh.
so I'm looking for a precedent.
Well, that doesn't work really well. Like I get a lot of pictures like, hey, well, this guy did it, that guy did it. It doesn't make it okay. Hey, Joe.
You want to come down and join us? It's such a good time. Hell, anybody that shows up here ought to be able to play. That's what I find odd.
All right, do we have a motion to move back into open session?
Motion to move back into open session.
Second.
All those in favor? All right, passes. No action will be taken as a result of closed session, and we're adjourned.
Night.
I haven't announced